The Amazing Spider-Man 2 came out in 2014 and is directed by Mark Webb and stars Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone. And I'm very excited to give you guys my review for this movie. Be sure to check out my playlist with all my previous Spider-Man movie reviews. As well, be sure to leave a comment what you thought about this movie. And be sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel. Now let's get into this review. In this movie, New York is put under siege by Oscorp and it's up to Spider-Man to save the city he swore to protect as well as his loved ones. So Spider-Man 2 is not regarded as one of the better Spider-Man movies, and watching him, it has some problems. It is a bit of a mess at times. It's balancing a lot. It can be kind of goofy, it can't be goofy at times. But I find over the years I have more of appreciation for this movie, just like I do with the first Amazing Spider-Man movie. And I find for me that's because it feels like a Spider-Man movie, more so than some of the MCU ones do, like Homecoming and especially Far From Home. This still feels like a Spider-Man movie, and to me it feels like they still have Spider-Man right in this movie. And I've got issues with this movie, but I do enjoy it because it feels like a Spider-Man movie, and I also just miss those Spider-Man movies that aren't connected to a larger cinematic universe. So it might be unpopular to say, but I do for the most part enjoy this movie. Andrew Garfield I think is great as Peter Parker and Spider-Man. I thought he was very good in the first movie, but I think he's improved even more in this one. And his relationship with Emma Stone as Gwen Stacy is fantastic. I find that to be the real heart of this movie. Everything they do with those characters I thought was great. I loved how at the start it sort of continued that thing from the end of the first movie where Gwen's dad asked Peter to stay away from her so she doesn't get hurt, and he didn't do that, and it's showing that he's remembering that, feeling guilty. And I like the stuff that they did with that, because that was an issue I had at the end of the first film when he sort of ignored that. I liked what they were doing there, and I know not everybody loves the storyline with his parents. I thought it was kind of interesting though, because it's something different, and I thought it was a sort of a cool storyline to sort of take that character through that adds more emotional weight. There's some really good scenes with it as well, like one scene sort of midway through this movie with Peter and Aunt May where he's just asking her what happened. I thought it was great, and I thought the performances in that scene were fantastic as well. So I thought it was really cool. Not the strongest storyline for sure, but I thought they were doing some interesting stuff there. Wasn't a fan of when they sort of said that Richard Parker used his own DNA in the spiders, which sort of seemed to mean that only Peter Parker could become Spider-Man, because I think that kind of takes away one of the things that's kind of important about Spider-Man, that it could have been anybody. So I wasn't a huge fan of that aspect of that storyline, but other than that, I enjoyed it for the most part. Sure, the Roosevelt Station with a lab and this train coming out of the ground, that was kind of goofy. But this movie is goofy at times, with its villains like Electro. I think Jamie Foxx did a good job with what they gave him in this movie, but he's much more of a cliche villain at the start, and it's like a campy, goofy, sort of like the Jim Carrey's Riddler. It reminded me of that. But I thought all the action scenes with Electro were really good. The one in Times Square, the final battle. I thought those action scenes with Electro and Spider-Man were a lot of fun. Even if his character's kind of lacking, his motivation for being against Spider-Man is you get it, but it's not the strongest. And I get, okay, this guy is lonely. He may have some other issues, so he's in his mind built up that he and Spider-Man are friends. Maybe if they had delved into that a bit more, I would have bought into it more. But yeah, but I enjoyed the action scenes. And they bring in Dane DeHaan as the Green Goblin and Harry Osborn in this movie. I thought he did a good job. I thought he gave a really good performance. And I don't mind that they brought in Harry for this movie. Him becoming Green Goblin at the end of this was a bit shoehorned, for sure. Again, I enjoyed the action scene between him and Spider-Man. That was great and very emotional at the end. I find over the years, as I've rewatched the movie, it does feel less shoehorned, but maybe that's just because I know it's coming and I'm expecting it. But yeah, I thought him as Harry, the performance was good. Harry Osborn himself was fine, maybe not as strong as the Harry Osborn from the Tobey Maguire trilogy, but he was fine. And then they have the Rhino at the end, and the Rhino is just there. I can't really say much about the rhinos, barely, and is in it for like 5 minutes. But yeah, Rhino's there. This movie also looks great. All the swinging scenes were fantastic. The way they were shot and the CGI I thought was really good. The look of Spider-Man is really good in this movie too. It's a big step up from the first movie. Like, I didn't mind the suit in the first Amazing Spider-Man movie, but this is a huge improvement for sure. Love the design of the Spider-Man suit in this movie. It's definitely got some funny moments throughout as well that I really enjoyed. And I just found that even though this movie could be kind of clunky maybe at the start, and it had a lot to balance still, like it was setting up the Sinister Six, this movie still, I felt, had quite a bit of heart, and a lot of that was to do with Peter and Gwen. I thought it was fantastic what they were doing there. Performances were fantastic. All the Spider-Man action stuff was great as well. I really enjoyed it. So that's why it's like, for me, it's like, yeah, it's got problems, but it feels like a Spider-Man movie, if that makes sense. Whereas, again, Homecoming, like, I have fun with Homecoming and No Way Home, but they don't feel like Spider-Man movies as much to me anyway, especially Far From Home. But yeah, it feels like a Spider-Man movie. It looks great. The action's a lot of fun. Villains were fine. Like I said, I think the performances from the villains were all very good. Everybody did a good job in this movie. And there's some great scenes between Peter and Aunt May in this. There's some funny scenes as well that it's enough for me to enjoy this movie. It's not a perfect movie. I just enjoy it as a Spider-Man movie. And for me, I think this movie really nailed the gut punch at the end where Gwen Stacy dies. I think that was handled very well. Andrew Garfield's performance in that scene was perfect. Honestly, I think it was perfect. It was very emotional, and I think not everybody likes the build up to it, and maybe for different reasons, but I was watching it and I'm like, yes, the Green Goblin stuff's a little shoehorned in for sure, but that fight scene when it's kind of chaotic and I was like watching, like, they're not really building up to her dying until the web that's holding her actually gets cut. And I'm like, for me, that kind of works better, because if you're watching this and don't know anything about it, it means you're not going to be expecting it, where there's some other scenes you get in movies and you're like, oh, you can tell they're building up to somebody biting it here. And I thought that was kind of clever. I don't know if that's really what they were going for, but just for me, like, I kind of liked that until the web was cut, they weren't really building up that she was going to die. Like, there was, yeah, the concern for her being in the middle of this fight, but that happens a lot in Spider-Man movies where, like, MJ's in the middle of the fight, but you're not really concerned. So I like that, and also I'm just like that it's a Spider-Man movie, not in the MCU where they do a lot of fake deaths. She's dead. And, like, it's sad, but it works for the character, and this is partly where I wish they continued on with the Andrew Garfield movies, because I felt like they could have continued building on her death with Peter not only becoming more rageful like they hinted at in No Way Home, but sort of that idea of how he has to keep people away from him to be Spider-Man, which they were sort of going for at the start of this movie, which I liked. But I felt like they could have continued that more after what happened here, like set Peter on this course where he has to be isolated from people and figuring that out, sort of like what was going on in, like, Spider-Man 2, something like that, but you would have a different dynamic because he's lost somebody, partly because he was Spider-Man. So I kind of wish they could have done something like that. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. But I thought the way they ended this was great, and this movie I thought also was really good at the small moments. Like with the little kid, I believe his name was Jorge. There's one really nice moment at the start of this movie with him and Spider-Man where he's getting picked on and Spider-Man comes to help him. Another nice moment at the end of this movie, and even in the big opening action scene when Spider-Man saves Max, who becomes Electro, there's a nice sort of moment between them, and I thought this movie did a nice job at small moments like that as well. So I do have an appreciation for this movie, and I do enjoy it. It's still not the best Spider-Man movie. It's got issues. It's kind of clunky at times. It's balancing a lot like Spider-Man 3 was with its villains, different plot lines, setting up the Sinister Six. Yes, but it still has quite a bit of heart to it, and it feels like a Spider-Man movie. And there's the stuff that they got right in this, they got really right, in my opinion. So for me, I'm going to give The Amazing Spider-Man 2 a 70%. So guys, those are my thoughts on The Amazing Spider-Man 2. If you've seen it, be sure to let me know what you thought about it. As well, be sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel, and be sure to stay tuned for some more reviews coming soon. And until my next video, take care everybody.